Our journey begins with one of the most enduring mysteries of the ancient world, the legend of the lost city of Atlantis. First described by the Greek philosopher Plato over 2,000 years ago, Atlantis has captured the human imagination for millennia. But is it merely myth, or could there be some truth to this tantalizing tale? In 360 BC, Plato wrote of a powerful island civilization called Atlantis in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias. He described Atlantis as a prosperous maritime empire established by the sea god Poseidon that conquered much of Europe and Africa 9,000 years before his own time. The capital city was built in concentric rings of land and water, connected by tunnels large enough for ships to pass through. There was a great temple to Poseidon and lush, fertile farmland. But Atlantis was also a corrupt society that lost favor with the gods. Plato said Atlantis was swallowed up by the sea during violent earthquakes and floods. Could this dramatic tale have a basis in reality, or is it just mythic fiction? Let's examine the evidence.
Quote, "For it is related in our records how once upon a time your state stayed the course of a mighty host, which starting from a distant point in the Atlantic Ocean was insolently advancing to attack the whole of Europe and Asia to boot. For the ocean there was at that time navigable, for in front of the mouth which you Greeks call, as you say, the Pillars of Heracles, there lay an island which was larger than Libya and Asia together, and it was possible for the travellers of that time to cross from it to the other islands and from the islands to the whole of the continent, over against them, which encompasses that veritable ocean." Plato, Timaeus.
Our journey continues in the barren desert of Mauritania in northwestern Africa. Here lies one of the most enigmatic geological formations on Earth, known as the Richat Structure. This massive circular feature spans 30 miles wide and has become known as the Eye of the Sahara due to its striking appearance from above. The Richat Structure stands out in the otherwise flat and desolate landscape of the Sahara. Its appearance is uncannily similar to Plato's description of concentric rings alternating between land and water in Atlantis. Could this be more than mere coincidence?
Quote, "The Richat Structure of Mauritania has captured the attention of astronauts for about 50 years. The astronaut photo above shows the Richat Structure in beautiful low sun angles, displaying its bullseye pattern of concentric rings. This pattern reflects the varied resistance of sedimentary rock layers to erosion. The center consists of a dome of resistant quartzite rock, which has been stripped of overlying younger rocks by erosion. Successively weaker rocks surround this dome in concentric rings, forming a prominent series of ridges and valleys." NASA Earth Observatory.
Geologists concur that the Richat structure was formed by a geological dome that uplifted the land, exposing the resistant rocks at its center. Over millions of years, erosion shaped the dome into concentric rings. But could this area have once been home to an advanced civilization, as Plato suggested? Intriguingly, geological evidence indicates that the Sahara was once covered by extensive water networks, which dried up around 4000 BC due to shifts in the Earth's axis. This aligns with Plato's account of Atlantis sinking beneath the sea. While more research is needed, the Richat structure provokes fascinating questions. The location of the Richat structure lends some credence to the Atlantis theory. It sits near the Atlas Mountains, named for the Titan god Atlas, whom Plato references in connection to Atlantis. The surrounding lands match Plato's descriptions as the true source of Atlantean wealth and power. Archaeological evidence indicates that Mauritania was once rich in gold, copper, and ivory, coveted resources in the ancient world. Could this have attracted seafaring empires and inspired the Atlantis legend? Though circumstantial, the location presents compelling food for thought. In the 1950s, historian Charles Hapgood developed the theory of Earth crust displacement. This suggests that the outer crust of the Earth can suddenly shift over the molten inner layers, causing the poles to move to new positions. Hapgood proposed that such crustal shifts may have caused Atlantis's demise. Albert Einstein supported this theory in his foreword to Hapgood's book. A shift in poles 12,000 years ago could explain Plato's dates for Atlantis.
Quote, "In a polar region there is continual deposition of ice, which is not symmetrically distributed about the pole. The Earth's rotation acts on these unsymmetrically deposited masses and produces centrifugal momentum that is transmitted to the rigid crust of the Earth. The constantly increasing centrifugal momentum produced in this way will, when it has reached a certain point, produce a movement of the Earth's crust over the rest of the Earth's body, and this will displace the polar regions toward the equator." Albert Einstein.
Modern researchers like Ben Davidson have observed increasing seismic activity, volcanic eruptions, and anomalous behavior in the Earth's magnetic fields and sun. Davidson sees this as possible evidence that a crustal displacement event may occur again soon, an idea known as a pole shift. This could produce catastrophic earthquakes and tsunamis on an unprecedented scale. Davidson's daily tracking of solar and seismic events provide real-time data to analyze through the lens of Hapgood's theory.
Quote, "When you go back through the science, we can see that these kinds of events are actually periodic. They're cyclical. They happen every so many thousands of years." Ben Davidson, Suspicious Observers.
The theory of cyclical pole shifts coincides with clues of ancient cataclysms in myths and scriptures across cultures. Hindu, Greek, Mayan, and biblical texts all describe world-ending floods and disasters in ages past. This is particularly true for societies with deep roots in oral history, like the Aboriginal Australians, whose stories can be traced back over 10,000 years. The Richat Structure provokes questions of whether pole shifts and attendant floods contributed to these ancient tales.
Quote, "My people of the Kabi Kabi First Nation have stories that explain the formation of the mountains and valleys, the rivers, and the stars in the sky. We believe Wandjina created this land during the dream time." Guju Guju 4 Mile, Aboriginal Australian elder.
Intriguingly, cyclical catastrophes are a consistent theme in prophecies across millennia, from Hopi myths to the Book of Revelation. The 1917 apparitions at Fatima included the famous miracle of the sun, witnessed by thousands. Some believe this heralded future events related to the sun and shifting poles. Similarly, modern Marian prophecies, such as those received by Luz de Maria, warn of impending disasters linked to the sun and volcanoes. These prophetic messages call for urgent prayer, conversion, and spiritual renewal to mitigate coming tribulations.
Quote, "Before the comet comes, many nations, the good excepted, will be scourged by want and famine. The great nation in the ocean that is inhabited by people of different tribes and descent will be devastated by earthquake, storm, and tidal wave. It will be divided and in great part submerged." Sister Mary of Jesus Crucified, 19th century Marian visionary.
Beyond physical threats, prophecies emphasize moral decay as central to civilizational collapse. The story of Atlantis also carries this warning, that greed and arrogance breed calamity. Linking Richat to Atlantis invites reflection on modern parallels like materialism, environmental damage, and warmongering. Prophecies call us to transcend divisiveness through spiritual growth. This moral dimension gives deeper meaning to the Atlantis narrative.
Quote, "My people, you now have the warnings from heaven given to you in order that you amend your ways. You must decrease your dependence on material things and turn back to placing your confidence in God. Our Lady of all Nations."
Yet the prophecies also speak of hope, a new heaven and earth where justice reigns. God leaves the future undetermined, open to human free will. Though times ahead may be difficult, suffering is never the final word. Each person has a mission, and ordinary people can become extraordinary instruments of providence. Prophetic warnings are calls to prepare spiritually and help usher in the prophesied era of peace.
Quote, "And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. The former heaven and the former earth had passed away. Behold, God's dwelling is with the human race. He will dwell with them and they will be his people, and God himself will always be with them as their God." Revelation 21:1-3.
The lost city of Atlantis has gripped human imagination for millennia. While its true origins may never be known, geological anomalies like the Richat Structure provoke questions about advanced ancient civilizations lost to time. Cyclical pole shifts could lend plausibility to the legend. Prophecies across cultures warn of coming tribulations, yet also foresee a coming spiritual renewal. Whether myth or reality, Atlantis represents the universal struggle between good and evil, darkness and light. Its timeless message is that even great civilizations are fragile without a moral compass. The future remains unwritten. With God's help, let us come together as one human family to build a society of justice, compassion and peace. Stay mystical.